Hey everybody, my name is Steven.
And I'm Rylan Trader.
And we just wanted to share with you guys some really cool insights that we had from day one of the Adworld Conference. So I was actually up just a little bit earlier, and so I was able to catch the very first two guests. And the second one that I really liked, his name is Ben Parr. And so it's actually really cool. So his headshot is not great on AdWorld, but he actually looked really cool. He had this cool beard and cool hat. I was really vibing on it. So anyways, he really dropped some cool information, which is that, and maybe it's not new to some of you, it was new to me, two major things coming down the pipeline, or one that already has come down the pipeline and another that is yet to come, which is that iOS 14 and 15 begun the rollout from Apple to ask people permission to track their data. And that's really important because with Facebook, we just started a Facebook ad. We're looking to target the right people with the right ad at the right time, blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, his stat that he said was that 96% of people opt out of getting their data tracked. Now, you have an interesting theory about that, which is
that I think it's going to be a little silly because I think once people stop getting those ads that pertain to them, like this coffee that you like or the suggested brand that you might like, I think people will start opting back into it so they can keep seeing those things that appeal to them and the things they want that they don't even know they want.
Oh, really what we're talking about is a pendulum, right? So we gave away all our information, which, to be honest, we already gave it away. So I don't know what we're gaining by taking it back. But I guess current behavior, right? So we had the pendulum that way where we gave away all information. Now we're swinging back to we want to keep all of our information. And you're saying that it'll actually swing back again because of the fact that at the end of the day, a bad ad is kind of like a waste of our time and attention, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was one big thing. So obviously taking that into account for strategy and content is important because you'll be able to track less in your advertising. Additionally, 2023, Google will eliminate, at least according to their announcement, that could always change, but eliminate third-party cookies. Now, this is typically what's tracked people all over the web and given people a lot of data, but specifically, and this is terrifying, I don't know if it's really that terrifying. Right? There you go. Terrified face. So I guess it is almost Halloween, right? So we can be freaking out. Things like open rates being communicated from Google back to the platform that you're scheduling all your email marketing automation through, completely gone. And so it was really interesting. Some people kind of freaked out about it. I certainly was intrigued about what the solution is of that problem. And other people are like, okay, it is what it is. And I don't know if people are quite as chill as I'd like to think that they are about it. Because at the end of the day, they have to justify the service that they provide and the money that they charge. And they have to be able to show something for it. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be more difficult to get that funnel of people because then you're just going to really have your core audience that you already have. Getting new views is definitely going to be more difficult once that's gone.
Right. And I think that actually leads perfectly to the next guest, which is right when you, towards the end when you came in, which is an amazing delivery by Seth Godin. I literally said Seth Rogen earlier. They're both bald.
I was like, no way. I can't believe I missed it.
Yeah. Very different guys, both bald. But very different demographic and skill set. But either way, Seth Godin sat down and he was basically talking at the end of the day, despite all these changes, despite the lack of data that we now have, all of these things, it still comes back to the fact that you have to make something that people want to see and that they'll miss when it's gone. And so obviously that was hugely challenging because at the end of the day, that's something that transcends a beautiful video. It transcends the greatest copy. It transcends the greatest strategies, which is do people actually find this interesting at all? The one thing that he did say that I thought was really interesting, and this kind of goes back to the niching down thing of finding a more specific audience, is the idea that a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves and need these kinds of platforms to work in the way that they work because they're trying to reach everyone instead of a few people. And the example he used was Patagonia. The Patagonia started by the guy who was trying to reach like 400 people who were like avid outdoors people that he knew, like somewhat personally, or at least acquaintances, or at least knew their name. And he tried to make them as happy as possible. And then it blew up into an outdoor apparel brand. He didn't try to start an outdoor apparel brand and then try to make 400 people happy. Like it was, we typically do things in reverse, right? We want to try to reach everyone because that's the top of the funnel, which is a decently logical choice. But he's saying, why don't you start with figuring out if you can make 400 people happy, or maybe 200 people, or maybe 20 people happy, and then expand your efforts from there. It's kind of like a reverse funnel, at least at the beginning, right? Because then once you know that your product is great, then of course you can reach masses. But if you don't know that it is, then you're kind of guessing and you're trying to reach everyone with your ads. So I know we've talked a little bit about niching down, but what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely agree. I think that trying to reach a super broad audience definitely eliminates your chances of actually being seen almost, because then it's like, yes, a lot of people are seeing your ad, but are they actually acting in any sort of way? Like, are they clicking on the links? Are they buying anything? Like, are you making a profit off of them seeing your ad? So I think that targeting like a smaller audience is definitely key before going to that bigger audience.
And that's why something like impressions is just not enough of a metric on its own. Cool. All right. Well, that was kind of where you came in on the day. So maybe if you can take the lead and tell us the next thing that stood out to you.
So for the next one, I don't actually remember their name, but they talked about how they actually advertised for Taboo advertisements. So basically they do things that they're a little controversial, that aren't really talked about in the media, but are becoming more like, how they said it makes consumerism feel like activism, where they're talking about things that make people a little uncomfortable. They weren't so common. They mentioned how they did an ad for Wiz Khalifa, and rather than it being like, it was a weed ad, obviously, but rather than it being like a medical way, it was just like, we're here to have fun. So they targeted more towards, we want to get you high, basically, rather than, oh, this is a medical sort of thing. So it's a little taboo in that sense, but I found it super interesting that we're kind of stepping into this advertisement world where saying like a little more inappropriate things that weren't as common back then are coming a little more common, a little more comfortable, a little more talked about. And another thing they mentioned was like they were talking about some brands like Billy the razor company, and they were talking about how not only do people want to buy the brand, but they feel proud to be buying the brand. Like it's not like the pink tags. It's not like super crazy. Like the overall design of it was really just a lot more modern, a lot more like out there, but also, and another thing they mentioned about the razors is that they were showing more of people with like actual hair on their bodies, because normally in like old Venus commercials, they show hairless women, and now they're trying to make it more realistic in the sense that women buy razors to be hairless, not the other way around. So I found that was super interesting. Do you have any comments on?
Well, first of all, it's kind of interesting that you would show, I don't know, I've never thought about the fact that like hairless women are shaving.
Yeah.
Kind of seems weird.
It does.
Yeah.
It's very silly.
It is a little silly. I would say that the thing that I got from them, so their name was Maggie and Zach. And so I think the thing from them was, in order to break the rules, you have to know what the rules are. And so these taboo industries that they're working in, the rules are pretty obvious. Obviously not to me with the shaving, but I also don't shave my legs, so I don't think about it a whole lot. But, the rules are a little bit more obvious maybe. And so they were talking about how simply changing one thing, stretching one rule of that taboo can completely change the impact that ad has, despite the fact that the ad itself, maybe the design or the concept is not all that revolutionary. So yes, showing women with hair while they're shaving, because you shave hair, on its own, like the ad itself wasn't revolutionary. The fact that they showed women who had hair was revolutionary. And so that is what made it impactful. And that's what we've talked about like a lot. That's like why we have the Death of Vanilla podcast. Shameless plug for that. And we'll have a link for that below. But the Death of Vanilla podcast, the whole point is us talking about doing something different that makes you stand out.
Right.
And so sometimes those rules are obvious and sometimes they're not. And so them talking about taboo industries is kind of like a hotbed of opportunity to do something different and stand out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it takes a little bit of risk. Not every company is into doing that.
No, they are not. But it is about knowing those rules and those boundaries, those lines you can cross without getting canceled. The next guy we talked about or watched was Joe Pulizzi, and he talked about building and monetizing a digital audience. And one thing he hit really hard was either post consistently or don't even bother. Because if you're not posting consistently, if you're not posting daily, you're not posting weekly, you're not hitting all those marks, you might as well not even bother because there's already so much content that's out there. And another thing he hit, which I found was really interesting, is that with this new generation that's coming up, there's a lot of new ideas that maybe the older generation isn't really aware of, or these new trends that they're just not like quite as on as this younger generation. So he talked about going through and looking at corporations that maybe have some of those people who know those trends and actually contacting them and seeing either A, if they're available, or B, if they know anyone who is available. And you can go on there, you can literally go on their websites and find them. Like you can go on your competitors' websites and find the people working for them and literally steal them. So I found that was super interesting, which was, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. It was, and really, realistically, that's why we created Burkhart Creative Agency is not only because sometimes people actually need the tactical ability to pull something off, like maybe they can't shoot video and we can, or whatever else, but it's also that idea of a fresh perspective. And I think that is brilliant. Like even when he was talking about stealing people, he wasn't even talking about necessarily like hiring them as an employee and like stealing people corporately. He was just saying like, hey, these people are writing for these publications and they're freelance writers, like just hire them to freelance for you. Like they already have the knowledge base and they can create content based around that. And I don't know, I thought that was pretty brilliant. So
another thing we found super interesting about Joe was he mentioned buying audiences. And one thing he mentioned about this was just kind of an example is HubSpot bought Hustle, and they bought it for $27 million, which obviously seems like a lot, but I guess it's a super great price is what he said. And they bought, I can't even remember the number, but they bought like this huge audience, and they basically advertised themselves to this audience of people who are kind of already interested in like the HubSpot kind of vibe. So they were able to like directly market to people who were already interested. So I thought that was like a very innovative way of creating revenue.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the Hustle is a newsletter, like an email newsletter that they bought essentially that list for. They own the list. And so, yeah, that was a brilliant move because those are literally like all entrepreneurs or people that could potentially be using HubSpot. Yeah. Okay, so this next speaker, Joanne, I don't know how to say her last name. Anyways, her name's Joanne. She is with Copy Hackers, I believe. Yes. And she was absolutely my favorite today. And I think it's just because it really exposed something that was lacking in me, which is like this intentionality with words. So she's a copywriter, literally her job. But she was able to go through and really nail down with like real words and real phrases how to address concerns, how to inspire people to look at their life differently, to confirm the logic that people are supposedly using in their decision making. And so the one little nugget that I'll give you that was really amazing was really the very first one that she went to, which is the difference between should and could. So could is more commonly used. And so it's like you could make $1 million with this process. Like you could, you like say for us, you hire Burkhart Creative Agency, you could see a 10x return on your ads because of the video being better, right? But could and should are very, very different in what they imply in you. So could is like aspirational, where like you could imagine yourself in this new place that you could be in, right? I could imagine myself lying on a chair on a boat getting served pastrami sandwiches and martinis. I don't know. That does not sound good together. But, I could be there. I should be there. It's completely different.
You should.
I should, actually. I should. In fact, I should be on the boat complaining about how the pastrami and the martinis don't go together and send them back and have them bring me else something because I deserve that.
You should be doing that.
I deserve that. Right? And so a totally different way that goes about when you write your copy is, you should be in this position, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're like, yeah, like I do deserve that. I do need that. Like that is where I should be. And so from like a marketing standpoint, I think it helps clarify the gap between where you are and where you could be, should be.
Absolutely.
Should be. Look, there I am messing it up again. And then it exposes that gap. Like you should be doing this, but you're not.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, shoot, I need a solution. Oof. I need a solution to get me from here to here, right? So anyways, that was really my big takeaway. So there was so much more, but I want to keep this video under 2 hours. So what was your thoughts on her?
I thought it was super interesting how she didn't just go into keywords, she also went into phrasing. She mentioned that she said space, semicolon. So,
I think it might have been the other way around.
Semicolon, space. But basically the semicolon provides this break or this pause for the reader, and it kind of almost makes them want to like continue reading, because it's like, oh, I have to find out what happens next. Oh, there's this little pause, I have to like keep reading. So I thought that was super interesting that even just something so small like a semicolon, like it takes you how long to type that? 0.01 second, and it increases your search results by like how much? So I thought that was just revolutionary. It was just crazy to me.
You're a very fast typer. Fraction of a second, boom.
Bang. There it is.
Yeah, and actually, so to piggyback off of that, the thing that she was talking about is something I literally do all the time, which is that I bold the point. I bold the point. But she said you actually need to bold that part, that's a semicolon, that you need to like emphasize this build up so that people are like, wait a second, where is she going with this? And you have to keep reading. So yes, absolutely fascinating. Semicolon, space. Let it change your life. So anyways, I could talk about her forever. Next is Ross Simmons. And so he talked about how content is not king, about how distribution is. And I'm not sure I agree, but I'd love to hear your perspective on some of the things that he dropped knowledge-wise.
So one thing I found interesting about him is that when he first introduced himself, he started talking about the cocktail party effect. Now this one was kind of almost, the way he went with it was expected almost, where he was like, oh, there's all this noise around you, but the cocktail party effect is
there was no curveball in there.
Yeah,
I know where that's going.
Yeah, he kind of was like, but in the digital world, obviously there is so much noise around us. There is always something happening. There's always a new trend. There's always something going viral. There's always a new post to like. There's always just something going on. And so I think one thing he mentioned was distribution for sure, and just like getting on platforms that maybe you don't think are like for you. Like he mentioned Reddit and Quora and I can't remember some of the other things mentioned, but he mentioned just getting on those platforms because people are asking questions. They want to know answers. And so if you go on there and your business is offering a service, like look up what people want that's kind of like around your service or your product, and like find them, like comment them, be like, oh hey, we have this available for you, we have this for you. So I thought that was really interesting because he mentioned like distribution, kind of like distributing almost your link to your website, which was super cool.
Yeah, in the post that you're responding, that you respond with something that's helpful and the link to an article that would explain that further, I think. So I think it was really interesting. I think like for me to make some like hair splitting comment about like distribution being king instead of content, I think is kind of silly, because at the end of the day, like the whole reason you make content is to distribute it. So like, I don't know, like, and you can't distribute nothing. Right. So I don't know. I still feel like content is king, but I do think that his point that distribution is highly important is absolutely true. And so one thing that he mentioned to your point with Reddit is that it is like the third most searched
Yeah.
Or it pulls up in search results like the third out of like everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything.
It's like YouTube, Facebook, and then Reddit, right?
Right. Big surprise since YouTube is Google. So, but yeah, so it's like, yeah. So then it's Reddit. And I think Pinterest was 6th. LinkedIn was like 8th. So of course that signals to you that this is an important place to be. And I got to admit, like I'm not on there, and thankfully apparently I'm not the only one, because he said that lots of marketers are absolutely not on Reddit. They don't know how to use it. And I guess, at the end of the day, you'd probably have to have a community manager as a part of your social media team, because like who's going to have time to just go and like respond to things all the time? Like that is its own full-time job, like no joke. Like, if you already have someone creating content, someone scheduling it out and doing all the optimizing and the research and the auditing of that, you need to have someone else reaching out into the community, which is exactly what Reddit is. But what was the other thing? Oh, the other thing that was really cool was Facebook page graveyards is what he called them.
Yes.
And so he's basically saying, like, you have these pages on Facebook that have been around since 2007 or something crazy, where people have built these massive audiences. They've since abandoned it because of lack of interest, or they moved on, or they started a different Facebook group. And so there's these Facebook pages that have like thousands and thousands of people as a part of them. They could be in your niche, and you can just buy them. I don't even know if, like, he said he bought one for like $3,000. I bet you could just get one for free.
Yeah.
Because like if the person doesn't give a crap, like you just here you go. Yeah, like just do that, and then now you have access to all these people who at one point in time were legitimately interested in what that person was talking about in that concept. So I thought that was really crazy. I literally never thought about it. Everyone's talking about Facebook groups, but Facebook pages that have thousands of people already, amazing.
And it was crazy because he said he bought it and he turned around and made profit within the week. Like, he literally was able to buy that group, sell his product, and make all of his money back and more. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like people will usually buy like email lists. They're like borrowed lists. They're like, they don't own them, but they're buying them from someone else. But this is like legitimately you really kind of do own the list. So anyways, interesting. Yeah.
So for this next part, we listened to Benton Crane, and he mentioned that he really honed in on testimonials and how they use testimonials to sell a certain product. And they said that it actually increased the people who wanted to buy it, because people like buying from other people. They like buying from like this person who's already experienced it. They've already gone through like what the product is going to do to them, how the service is, what it's like. So they basically took reviews from real people and they just put it up, and they put it back like with some stock footages or stock images, and then they did like the little testimonials, and it was like a 5-second clip of a bunch of like things with some music. And he said it was like a viral ad or something like that, which is super crazy because that's something really easy. You can do that on iMovie. Like, it's not hard,
Yeah. Well, I mean, because his point was that like everyone does research before they buy a product. So why not just make your video ad be that thing?
Be the research, right?
Right. Yeah. It was really, really, really cool. It was funny because we were actually having some internet problems. And so he talked about moving from poop to gold. And I was like, did he just say poop?
Yeah.
He did. He did say poop. But what he was talking about is just that like growing the brand from being completely obscure to well known. So I mean, it was a shocking comparison, but whatever.
Yeah.
Either way, it was super smart, and the idea was that like because of the fact that testimonials are so brand building, don't overlook those as legitimate ways of building your brand, your reputation, getting your name out there, and just building that trust. And it's like you said, it's super simple. Like you can just literally use your phone or Canva and build like some automation on some testimonial text. Okay, so the next one, speaking of testimonials, was the next presenter was the CMO from Canva. And that while we didn't necessarily like his presentation, it was basically just an ad for Canva, and they do some wonderful things. So I don't want to downplay that. But the funny thing is like his whole entire presentation was formed out of
Testimonials.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding,
You're
ding.
so right. And so literally like probably 70% of his testimonial his presentation was testimonials from people around the world who used his products as for their business, for social movements, for all kinds of things. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. Just to see that validation in action with literally the next person presenting was kind of cool. I thought it was.
No, it was super cool. And he definitely mentioned, like, he went through their messaging, which was cool. You got to see, like, this big agency who started off, like, with such a small number of users, and they really did explode. And which is super cool because it's like, oh, I don't personally, but maybe someone out there has, like, a small little app and they feel like there's no hope, but, like, there is, because we literally saw it, with Canva. So I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, they put together some pretty crazy commercials for their product, and it is as amazing and as user friendly and as lovely as they say. And we use it for a lot of stuff. So we're part of the payers of this program, right?
We are.
We said there's 60 million people that use it every single like week or month or something like that. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
All right, next person, Kris Sugatan. This is why I'm not a DJ. Like, I should not announce people's names. It's just the worst. So, Kris, she was the one with the $3 million Facebook ad. So, I think you had some fire notes on that one.
I did. I was actually a little upset about this ad because it was so simple. Like, it was so incredibly easy. It was for Maine Lobster, I believe, and they basically just unboxed, like, their packaging. They showed the product. She made the food, like, she ate the food, and it went viral. And so I was a little pressed, not gonna lie, because we've definitely done our own ads, and we definitely do stuff that's a lot more sophisticated and complex than that really showcases our brand personally. So I guess it does matter what you're trying to put out there, but I thought it was super crazy how simple the ad was and how much money it was able to make him, because I think they said it was $3 million, but they said for every $3 he made like $7. So he made a significant profit off of this, like, one little ad where they showcased pictures of the food, and they said it was viral because of its relatability. Like they said, when they went through strategy, the wow factor didn't work, the value factor didn't work, and so they went with the relatability, and that's how they got that viral ad for them.
He makes about $1 million a year from this business selling the lobster, but it's still crazy to me that he still spent $3 million. That's 3 full months of revenue that he spent on advertising, but obviously it profited him well and did really well. And the one thing I really took away from her is, like, her team did a really good job of optimizing. So they tested those other ways of presenting his product that didn't work, and they were able to eliminate those from the ad spend. But additionally, they found they would be able to test videos and test graphics and then combine them together. So, for example, that ad that you're talking about, it is her unboxing the lobster and cooking it and doing the whole 9 yards. But they also have pictures of the final product in a very similar fashion that Facebook shows albums, which is like one big square and then some squares around the border in the corner. And so, which is funny because that makes me immediately think of one of Gary Vaynerchuk's books where he talks about doing things that are native to the platform and how those always perform better. Well, this was a Facebook ad, and it was arranged in a way that you typically see things on Facebook. So it was very familiar in the sense that you're looking for that on the platform and you're seeing it and it's familiar, in addition to it being relatable with the kind of person who was in it, the way it was presented, and the video production quality, which was on an iPhone. So frustrating. Like, I'm shooting with $7,000 worth of gear. Ridiculous. All right, so the next one was using psychology in video ads. So this was with Matthew Hauer. So give me a couple of zingy tips from him.
A few of his little zingy tips were he talked about their own personal app. I believe it's called, like, Voyant or something like that. It's like Beyond with a V instead of a B-E. So it was Voyant. I don't know. I looked up Beyond, and all I found was Bed Bath & Beyond.
Oh, yeah, it's Vion.
And it's Vion, turns out. It took me a couple tries to find it.
We got there.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
But he mentioned how visual is really a key factor in advertisement, and being more visual actually can increase your profit, or like the amount of people who will buy from you, because they kind of have this like relatedness, and because they can like visually see what's happening and see how it's like working and playing out, and see the timeline of how your product works, that kind of increased the revenue for businesses.
Well, he specifically mentioned 3 things that we see and relate to the most. Mm-hmm. Pop quiz. So faces, mm-hmm. I believe expressions, and movement, I believe, are the 3. So anyway, so he does illustrations. They're not real video. Sorry. Oof. That sounds rough. I'm not calling anyone out. They are not video shot videos. They are motion graphics illustrations. Yeah. And so he was saying that even the fact that there is a human face, even in illustration form, is still more relatable than not seeing a face at all. And so it was really, I don't know, it was crazy to learn about that and just realize that, you know, all the things that they talk about with, you know, needing to see someone like you in order to relate. And that's why there's all sorts of ethnicities in videos and in age groups and stuff like that, and why products for old people have old people in them and products for young people have young people in them, is because you literally do need to see someone like you to have a connection and develop that psychological like connection there. I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I definitely liked it.
So those are our big tips from some of the people that we enjoyed most. We'll have, I think we'll probably have some of their faces in the main thumbnail, and I don't know. If I'm feeling really kind, I'll put a whole bunch of links in there. We're just trying to get this video up as quickly as possible because we wanted to bring you some amazing content from day 1 of Adworld. It was really cool. Looking forward to day 2 and day 3, and I'm hoping that I just don't actually become one with my couch by day 3, because I'm getting a little comfy over here, so I'm doing little walks here and there. I know, it's crazy. So anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching, and hopefully, yeah, just reach out, contact us, comment, whatever you want to do. Tell us about your experience at Adworld if you happen to participate. And yeah, it was good chatting, right? Right.
Hey, I seen it all before. I heard chat that they all adore. 1 week looking like they all aboard. Next day they don't even walk the walk. I've been here since a bust down aqua, cutting through after all black master. Now I'm too grown for acting gaffer, trying to pay off my mom.